Guillermo Mash here for KZFR 90.1 FM, People Power Radio, and we have no better person to put on the line here than Ron Austin from Tucson, Arizona. And welcome to the show, Ron Austin.
Thank you, Guillermo.
Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, Ron, and the work you do with impoverished folks in the Tucson, Arizona area, and a little bit of your backstory.
Okay, well, I'm formerly a homeless person. At the time I was homeless, I was an active crack addict, and I've been cleaned down and housed for 20-some years. And I am the vice president of the Carlos G. Figueroa Foundation with Diana Figueroa, who is the president. And we do advocacy stuff in Tucson for the homeless. For the past couple years, we've done the Homeless Backpack Challenge, 2014 and 2015 Backpack Challenge, and it will become an annual event. We will be doing the 2016 Backpack Challenge here in December. And right now, there's a project going on which belongs to Sylvia Sander, which we are the fiscal sponsor of, and that is the Bright Eyes Project, in which Sylvia has given cameras to homeless people so that they can express themselves and shoot whatever they desire. And one of those photographs is hanging in Joel Valdez downtown library in a very prominent spot. And many of these photographs are really, really outstanding.
It begs the question, I know you say you're formerly homeless, and I'm so glad to know that you're housed, formerly a crack, as you're quoted, crack addict. And since this is a segment on solutions to homelessness, what was it that helped you get off the streets, Ron?
Well, what helped me primarily was a lot of people who had a lot of feeling for me. I went to the Primavera Shelter, of which I'm an employee. From there, I went to the Veterans Administration Substance Abuse Treatment Unit and lived there for like 50 days. And from there, I went to Primavera's 5 Points Transitional Housing to build my foundation to reemerge back in mainstream. Stayed there for about a year. And Primavera hired me to become resident manager of Alamo Transitional Apartments. I've been there ever since. But in the process, there's a lot of people assisted me in this process. And there's a lot of people out here in Tucson and in our country that won't necessarily have all those people in their corner, but it takes people, it takes a village to change a condition in a person's life. And that's what we need. We need this village of our nation to pull together and to help and assist the homeless who want to reach more than what they have at the present.
Well, that's outstanding. So we're going to kind of do a fast forward from 20 years ago. You described some of the programs and things that helped you, Ron Austin from Tucson, Arizona. What do you see on the streets now, Ron? What's going on in Tucson, Arizona that we would classify a solution to homelessness that gives you hope, that's helping folks?
The city of Tucson is starting to wake up to the fact that they cannot just run the homeless from one spot to another as they have been doing in the past, from one park to another, keep harassing them, and that will solve the problem. They are starting to see that this is true, and they are enabling some possible solutions such as housing, similar to 51 homes. I think some of your listeners have heard of 51 homes, putting homeless people into housing, and that has seemed to work across the nation. And I believe that the city fathers, mothers are starting to wake up to that fact, and they are participating in some avenues to alleviate the homeless of being homeless.
So, Ron, the other part of the little segment we're doing here is to talk a bit about the media coverage and, the good points, the bad points, and the mid points on how the media is covering homelessness in the Tucson area. What would you say to that?
I'm going to have to tell you, Guillermo, that I'm not very proud of the media, these days. It used to be back in the day that the media was local, and therefore it produced local subjects. But now, since media belongs to 9 mega corporate entities, it has become less than local and starting to produce their own concepts of what news is. And therefore, what has occurred is that the mainstream media has not been kind to homeless people. They have predominantly shown primarily the negative images of homeless people panhandling on the street, having killed somebody or fell off a freight train or broke their leg or something of that sort, and don't actually show the well-dressed, articulate individuals that are out looking for a job, the families that are striving to get back into the mainstream. And we need to change the language.
So why do you think that is, Ron Austin? Why do you think they're focusing on this quote unquote it bleeds, it leads, or this negative aspect, and not more of the positive aspect and solutions?
Well, because there's no money. Mainstream media these days is about the almighty dollar. That's why they belong. They're owned by mega corporate entities. Okay, there's no money in it. Okay, talking positively about homeless people. So basically, that's the way I see it.
I kind of tell folks, because I was formerly homeless, a runaway as a youth, and then I was on the streets 8 months before I got housed in 2013. If you haven't been homeless, you don't really understand homelessness, and we need to spend a lot more energy and time listening to people that have experienced it and taking their ideas and their solutions and their passion. What would you add to that?
Yes, right. Well, the solution here is that mainstream America needs to go to the shelters, okay, and listen to the real stories, okay? And short of that, we all encounter homeless people on the street, okay? But the problem is that we tend to look through them. We tend not to see them. Homeless people are not used to being recognized, being humanized by the man and woman in the street. So next time you pass by a homeless person, at least smile, recognize their humanity, okay? And that will save a great deal of them from going down the rabbit hole, so to say, because many homeless people, they're just disgusted of that fact that they are not treated humanely.
I think there's other things folks can do, too, as far as social and civil justice. I have a story. When I interviewed John Linton, oh my gosh, that was almost a year ago, he had mentioned how he met you, Ron Austin. The story, as I remember it, is he was talking to you about some bench that they had chained. They'd put chains around this bench, this park bench, so someone couldn't sleep on it. He drove all the way to Tucson, Arizona, and you and him cut those chains off the park bench. Maybe you can give us a little bit more about that story, Ron.
Yes, well, those chains were put on there, obviously, to keep homeless people from sleeping on the park benches. And I understand where a business person may come from as far as that is concerned, but that's just a symbol of all the other chains that are wrapped around homeless people. They're chained by not being able to go to a public park and rest. They're chained by the fact that they can't go into a disused, dilapidated house and sleep at night. Okay, how can you prevent a person from doing something that is necessary for them to live? There are many chains that are wrapped around homeless people, and that was just representative. That was an icon of those chains for us. So we got together and we cut those chains, and they have not been replaced.
Blessings to you, Ron Austin. If I gave you 30 seconds, 30 seconds with Ron Austin, something you might want to expand on or add to this little interview, what would that be, Ron Austin?
I suggest that you go to the homeless shelters, okay, that you listen to the sorrowful stories of people who are homeless. They're not all addicts. They're not all drunks. They're not all crack addicts. Many of them have come from the subprime mortgage crisis and were mainstream people until they lost their homes and ended up homeless. Many of them. So go to the shelters. Learn about homelessness. Stop feeding into the stereotypical images of what homelessness is about, because they are not true.
I talk to anyone and anywhere, at any time, and I just treat them like human beings. So I would add, talk to folks on the streets and don't try to judge them. I mean, you might be talking to someone that might be mentally ill, or talking to someone that just used drugs, or talking to someone to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not our cause or place on earth to judge other folks. It's to be kind and loving and to share some space and time and let them know that they're part of the community and that they're human.
Correct. You're very correct in that, Guillermo.
And I really appreciate all the work you're doing in Tucson, and thank you for calling in to KZFR 90.1 FM.
Thank you for the interview.